Making it happen, and we so passionate.
That's right.
With dental training, growing your dental practices every single day. Gotta keep rising, be a better version of you. We call it Kaizen. Yeah, practice biopsy. Going up, no stopping. Yeah, practice biopsy. Let's go.
Hey, Practice Biopsy, D'Angelo here. I have a great guest who's been on a conversation with me before, Dr. Shahin Safarian, and we're going to talk about some great topics today that center around the idea of improving your dental practice starts with improving yourself. We're also going to talk about a really unique model of dental practice that he's currently operating with. So, Dr. Safarian has done it all. He's had big practices. He's owned multiple practices, 2, 3 different offices, worked mega long days, and he's flipped all that upside down, and he's operating under a really unique model. We're going to talk a little bit about what that model looks like and the journey to deciding and having the clarity that that was the right choice instead of the previous arrangement. So, Doc, I'll let you kind of get into that. Just tell the audience a little bit about where you're practicing currently, how long you've been practicing, and talk about your journey from building up to multiple practices to your current office, which is like the size of my bedroom.
How much time do we got, man?
Let's go.
You know, I mean, 25 years and 30 minutes. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on again. I think this is the third time we're on talking. I appreciate all that you do. People don't really understand and realize the amount of energy all this stuff takes. And this is all outside of the clinic, outside of chairside seeing patients. So kudos to you, my friend.
Nice.
And you're doing some great things. Boy, you asked the heavy loaded question. I really, don't want to bore the audience with the specific details, but I can tell you that the journey's been, I started dental school at Tufts in 97. Graduated 2001, so I'm coming up on my 25-year in experience being in the real world. And I think one thing that every doctor needs to understand is that it's a journey, and that journey is going to take you through some changes, some experiences, good and bad, and you will need to pivot. And pivoting is part of the journey. And some doctors really have a hard time with that concept of pivoting. There's always going to be a fork in the middle of the road, and you got to choose left or right. And don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of that experience, and don't avoid the pivot. And so, yeah, I mean, my journey when I first graduated, I was clueless. I mean, it really comes down to that in many respects. And that's part of the journey too. I mean, I graduated at 33. I'm 56 now. So understand, if you're a young dentist, that it's okay to be clueless. It's okay not to have all the answers. It's okay not to be mature enough to make some wise decisions. It's okay to make a decision. And it's okay to fail on that decision. There's always this famous saying that you don't fail, you learn. And that's okay. Don't be afraid of that. I know on social channels right now, a lot of doctors are afraid in their second and third year. Oh my gosh, I got all this debt and I'm going to be $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 in debt. Well, guess what? Let me give you a little surprise. You're going to go more into debt in the first 7, 8 years in practice, because you are probably going to get married. You're probably going to need a couple of cars. You're probably going to get into a practice. There's going to be some other expenses. You probably, if not definitely, will need continuing education, because your dental degree is limited in many respects. So don't be afraid of the debt, because it's there. It's real. And if you really understand good debt versus bad debt, you have to understand that your degree is a good debt. Ideally, you want your dental practice to be a good debt. You want your house to be good debt. I know there's some social media influencers right now saying don't buy a house, just rent. And there's a lot of discussion out there. The number one thing I will tell you, Doc, is is clarity. I think one of the things that we don't really understand, and this really comes from emotional intelligence and emotional maturity. And I know you, I've been following you, obviously, I think we're going on 6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I know your journey. I mean, first year dental school, you're already hustling. And, first year out, you already got your private practice. And I believe you purchased your practice for $85,000, if my math is right. Yeah, as a startup. So, everybody's journey is going to be different. You have to create your own lane and not be part of the herd. Because if you're part of the herd, it might not match with who you are as an individual. So at 28, when you graduate, you don't know much, and that's okay. At 35, you will understand your journey and have more clarity. But this process is one where if you think you have all the answers and they need to be in front of you right now today, it's a very frustrating profession. Because it's really a slow, stagnant, at times, process. So yeah, I mean, this is my 5th startup. I've gone through a few pivots on the road, in the forks on the road, and I realized in 2012 that I did not want to practice 45 years, 5-6 days a week in the clinic.
It's too much.
That I knew. It's not necessarily that it's too much. It just wasn't my personality.
Yeah.
I started to get some clarity. My first 10 years, I cranked. I would highly recommend any dentist that you just shut up and work for your first 10 years, learn the profession, master your art. And it's a practice. I still today have to redo my impressions, or there's still some imperfections in our professions 25 years in. So you're never going to be a perfectionist in the clinic. But the point is, your first 10 years, just do the clinical. Get your continuing education down. So 2012 is when I really started to dive into multiple practices. I started to create a multi-specialty practice. The real estate journey for me in 2008 was a crash. It damaged my credit, damaged a lot of things. I had quite a few properties that, if the doctors are old enough, they know what happened in 2008. So long story short, here we are, 2025, and I have a 600 square foot practice. There was a time, I think just before we spoke, I had 3 practices and working 6 days a week, 12 hours a day.
Yeah, I remember.
And so, look, you just have to have some clarity on what you're chasing. There are doctors that want to exit, open a 8-9 op practice, maybe multiple practices, and the goal is EBITDA and exit to a DSO corporate. My only point, by the way, I'm sure you follow me on social channels. I'm very active. I post a lot of things. There's a purpose to everything that I do. I'm not a DSO fan by definition, but I also think that the DSOs are doing some great things. And one of the great things that they're doing is they're really understanding the business side of dentistry, and they're really taking advantage and capitalizing on the holes that the private sector is exposed to. So with that said, I transitioned 2022, and about a year, 15 months ago, now I open up a small out-of-network practice. I even argued about fee-for-service versus out-of-network. If you are submitting claims for your patients, you are not fee-for-service, you are out-of-network. Fee-for-service is you go get a haircut. You cut your hair, you pay cash, you walk out. Most dental practices are actually not fee-for-service. They are out-of-network.
Out of network.
So 600 square feet out of network. I just worked on a patient where we're doing 8 uppers, 6 lowers. So it's a lot more customized to the type of dentistry that I want to do. I'm not trying to build a hygiene practice. I'm just trying to do high-end quality dentistry efficiently. You'd be
Are
surprised.
you doing more like with the 8/6 that I think you said you did? Are you doing more like rehab or more cosmetic, or is it a mixture?
Yeah, it's a mix. Mostly I'm finding right now in my first year and a half of practice here that it's mostly smile makeovers and not rehab. But here's the point of this. The point of this, and I posted something on this just a few days ago. I used to charge $1,600 a unit. For 4 units, that's $6,400.
Yeah.
And my overhead was 80%. So my net on that was 1,280. And now I charge 4,000. My net on the same 4 units is over 2,000. And the patient's happy. So you have to understand what game you're playing. And this is one of the challenges, a big challenge in dentistry is everybody wants the noise. Sorry. Everybody wants the noise, but nobody really understands that you're not chasing noise, you're chasing net. And
Yeah, I saw
so,
that post. You're not chasing noise, you're chasing net.
yeah, so again, it just comes down to clarity. I think this is not the type of practice you want to have in your first year out. You got to practice, you got to get your hands and feet wet, you got to make some mistakes, you got to fail on some cases, you got to go through the journey a little bit. But my goal is to be able to, at least this is what I feel right now in that pivot, is that I want to provide excellent cosmetic dentistry at affordable prices. And so if I downsize my office, get rid of 20 to 30% of the noise, then I can provide the same quality, net the same, and charge the patient less. So in essence, I'm just taking that money off the table for the consumer.
Nice. I remember when you showed me the floor plan for your current space. I think
Yeah.
you actually posted it in one of the groups, and it got like so many comments saying that it wouldn't even be possible to build, but here it is. So,
Well, let me say this, and understand that dentistry is about confidence, right? And confidence in your ability to produce out of one chair. So the question really is, if you really sat down and you said, I had my most ideal day, whatever that is for you. If you want to do root canals all day, great. If you want to do implants all day, great. If you want to do cosmetics all day, great. You want to do braces all day, great. Whatever that is for you, what can you produce out of one chair? Right? And if you're telling me that you can max best you're in the zone, the basket is like the swimming pool, anything you shoot goes in the basket kind of a day, you can't tell me that your best days are $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. Even at the lowest levels, you got to be at least $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a day. And at the highest levels, some of the more seasoned dentists and experienced dentists and dentists that have taken more CE units, they're looking at $40,000, $50,000 out of one chair plus. So you have to understand that math. And so a lot of times doctors, I've heard consultants say, well, if you have 6 chairs, you should do 1.8, 300 per chair, you should do 1.8. Well, who knows that? I know a doctor who says that. I mean, who judges that definition? I know a doctor has 4.5 chairs, 4.5 chairs, and he's doing $10 million a year. 4.5 chairs. So that's basically 2 million plus per chair. That's like 7x difference than what that consultant is saying. But here's the thing. What do we get attracted to? We get attracted to the consultant that we can justify. So we justify where we are with our 4 chairs, and we say, okay, well, I'm at $1 million or $1.5 million, right? So it's not what people say, it's what you believe you can do. And for every single one of us, it's a different model, right? If I'm doing 14 units, $15,000 of dentistry, right? And I'm cutting 14 teeth in a matter of 3-4 hours, and the patient walks out of the office, it's a good day. And I'm paying my assistant, and the rent in 1,600 square feet is like $1,600 a month. So my idea here is really just sit down and get clarity. Get clarity on exactly what type of dentistry you want to do. Now, that might say, like I said, you might have a pivot. So in 3 years, it might pivot. In 6 years, you might have another pivot. And so you might consistently have some pivots through your journey, but don't be afraid of taking the leap now and starting the process. I mean, just get in the game. So here's the other reason why I think this is a great model is that, the fear, right? The dentists are graduating and they're like, I'm 500 in debt, and I got to go get a $600,000-$700,000 loan from Bank of America to open up a practice because they're recommending that I get 5 or 6 op practice. And they're not necessarily wrong. The only issue is you don't know what you're doing. You can't go from a biochem course and become a CEO of a practice. It's $600,000-$700,000 on a debt, or you go and invest in a $1.3 million practice, and you're in your second year out of practice, out of school. So you just have to have a little perspective. You got to be able to crawl before you walk, before you run. And I think if you graduate and you get yourself a $700,000-$800,000 loan, or get a $1.2 million practice because the financials on the balance sheet look good, you didn't crawl and walk before you started running. So it might also be an opportunity for the young dentist to make a small investment and learn how to play the game. There's your short answer.
Can you describe the layout of your current office for those who can't see it? Like how do you utilize that 600 square feet?
Yeah, I got one room that's got 2 chairs.
How does
And
that flow work? Do you have 2 patients there at once? Is one like consultation? Like what on your ideal day, how are you using those 2 chairs that are in one room?
one day, one patient, one assistant, one doctor.
Hmm.
That's it. The second chair is, I mean, in the 15, 16 months, I've used the second chair with 2 patients in the chair, maybe 3 times.
So really, you don't even need that second chair you have. It's really just the one.
That's it. Yep. But you do get some times where a patient calls. I mean, I do ortho, wire comes off or temp comes off. I mean,
Like a little quick emergency thing, and they're in there
yeah,
too.
you always want to have a second chair. You always want to have a second chair. But I will also tell you, for the international doctors that are listening, every international dental office is set up just like this, where they have one chair in the office. They're not set up to where you got 3,000 square foot and 9 operatories. They're single chair offices. That's it. That's a dental practice in the rest of the world except America. So
And
for
do you
us,
think ours are bigger because we're more influenced by like traditional medical hospital where there's tons of doctors, tons of space, and we're trying to move towards that? Do you think that's why we have the offices with, 10, 12 ops?
the reason I bring that up is to say, don't be afraid of the smaller practice. It's what everybody does.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're failing. It doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing. It doesn't mean that, you're going to be embarrassed because your other dentist friends have 6 operatories and they're 2,500 square feet and they have 9 employees. And don't get don't get things tangled. Okay. Because my payroll is 8 to 12%. That 9 employee practice, their payroll is 38%. So don't get things twisted, because if I do 1.2, I'm coming home with 700,000. If that $1.2 million practice does 1.2 with 6 employees, they're coming home with 200. Don't get it twisted.
I think that's a great highlight point that I hope if, especially the younger dentists who are listening, they rewind and listen to that part again.
Yeah, so I mean that's the thing is that, are you chasing noise or are you chasing net? And the noise makes you more attractive when you go out on Fridays and Saturdays and, oh, I got multiple practices. I got to practice here. I got to practice there. And, it's a sexy conversation. But the smart guy is the one who's doing 1.2 and walking home with 750 in a small setup. And I think as you get more seasoned and more experienced, certainly becomes more attractive because you know what you're doing. You know what kind of dentistry you want to provide. I mean, if I asked you today, if you walked into your practice, what is your most ideal day as far as the services you want to provide? Go make that happen for yourself. Whatever that is.
Yeah.
It's possible to make that happen for yourself and then commit to it and then go through the journey to make it a success.
I was going to ask you another question, but I think you might have just answered it. I know you do coaching for doctors.
Yeah.
If you were doing a coaching analysis to help a doctor improve their profitability, like they're like, Dr. Safarian, I want my practice to be more profitable. I feel like I'm not. I'm that practice that we're doing 1.2 and I'm taking home 150. Like, what's the what's the first thing we need to do to break down to help them improve their profitability, improve their net in their practice if they're not happy with it? Like, how do we mentally walk them through that?
Stop spending. Number one, we have a budgeting problem. We just want to spend, spend, spend. So this idea of expansion versus contraction has got to be a discussion. You have to realize, I've been in this journey for a few years now, and I talk to doctors that, their personal life is damaging their small business because they want to buy the nicer cars, the bigger homes, and go on the more lavish vacations. And guess where that money's coming from? It's coming from the practice. And so your practice suffers when you become more extravagant with your lifestyle. So when I'm talking business, being in a small business and private practice, a single practitioner or partnership, stop spending. Number one. And I think the lack of discipline and accountability. See, our strategy for getting ourselves out of a hole is I hope that patient walks in and wants that smile makeover and I get a $15,000 check today. That's our strategy. And then if it never happens, then you're just getting yourself into a bigger and a bigger hole. So number one is stop spending. And number two is, it's a seesaw between payroll and collections. So I put my hand in here, right?
Yep.
If your payroll is high, you got a conversion problem, you got a diagnosis problem, you got a lead management problem, you got a problem with the phone not ringing, you got a close problem, you don't know how to sell the dentistry, right? That's what happens when payroll goes high. So doctors in the coaching realm always come to me and go, my payroll is 43%. My payroll is 38%.
I've been getting that a lot lately, like
Yeah.
almost 40%.
Yeah. So what do I need to do to reduce my payroll? Right? Well, number one, right, is to grow this section. So what do I need to do here because doctors will tell you, I can't shake my business culture. I can't reduce the hours of my team, and I need my team to do this right here. Right? So they're tangled with empathy, with kindness, with responsibility, with a sense of commitment and loyalty to their team, but their financials are suffering. And so here's where the battle is, because this is the struggle. So you're in network, you got 2 or 3 people dealing with their AR and insurance and verification and all that stuff. Guess what that does to payroll? So now you think, okay, well, I'm going to go out of network, right? Well, your payroll drops, but so does your collections.
And the payroll drops because out of network would, in theory, need less staff, so you don't have as many people on the team, right?
So the logic is this. The logic is I need to look at my production per hour, and we'll just assume that it's a one-to-one with collections. So receivables is really important here, okay? Because some of the doctors have $300,000 of receivables right now in the database, plus. So don't get excited about producing when you're not collecting. So there's a lot of holes in a business, a lot of holes in a business. And what ends up happening is the doctor doesn't know how to manage the holes, so they try to put a Band-Aid over it instead of fix the foundational problem of the business. And this is the X factor. The X factor is the doctor doesn't know. The doctor is not innovative. The doctor is an average individual. The doctor has no discipline, has no accountability, doesn't know how to play the game, doesn't know the how-to fix the issue. So payroll sits here, and what's the only thing they think of? I need more new patients. I need more new patients. I need more new patients. Because in essence, more butts in the chair, even if you trip and fall on your face, your business is going to grow. Right?
Yeah.
Because the odds are that you'll get 25 to 30% that are going to say yes to you. So just keep growing the new patients, keep growing. So why do you think the business owners do not like the marketing firms? Because that's their only exit to their payroll. They're blaming the marketing firm for their lack of skill and their inability to be a CEO of a business, and they think it's the marketing firm's fault because they spent money with the marketing firm and they didn't get butts in the chair. Do you know how many missed calls a dental practice has every month?
Probably hundreds.
Tons. I talked to a doctor once. He's like, I'm at $600,000-$700,000 for the last 7-8 years, and I don't know how to get to $1 million. Don't know how to get to $1 million. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying everything I can. You know what their problem was? He needed one more phone line. He was missing 60 to 70 calls a month because they would call and it would be busy because his other 3 lines were busy. Just need one more phone line. So some of these changes, the old saying is you're 3 feet from gold. You just don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
This is where the coaching comes in, right? The coach comes in and says, I'm going to help you get to an area where you can't get to by yourself because you don't see it. Then you show it to them and they don't agree. Why? You know why they don't agree? Because I'm a doctor, man. Don't tell me anything. I know everything. I'm a doctor. Right? So humility is the next thing. Right? You got to have some clarity and you got to have some humility. And humility basically says, man, you don't know everything. And it's okay not to know everything. You're not trained to know everything. So why are you fighting it? Do you know why you're 43%? Because you don't know how to play the game. It's not any other reason but you looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, I don't know how to play the game. But that's not what happens. It's the marketing team's fault. I've tried every marketing firm, and every marketing firm fails. I've tried an office manager. I've tried this. I've tried that. The list goes on and on and on, but that person never looks in the mirror to say, man, I don't I got myself to 43% payroll. I got myself there. You signed the loan for the practice. You signed the lease for the practice. You hired the people in the practice. So one of the challenges is don't get excited and get over leveraged. Understand your business metrics. You know, when somebody comes to me and goes, I'm thinking about leasing this practice for $8,000 a month. And I say, okay, you're a startup, right? Yes. Okay. Well, you want to be about 4 to 5% rent. So at 8,000, I don't know the math.
It's like
But
2 million.
that's right. So that means you got to get to 2 million for the business metrics to make sense. And it takes you 2 hours to prep a crown.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but it's in a great area. It's so nice, and it's like the mall is great, the environment is great, the location is awesome. It's right 5 minutes from my
And you have
kids.
0 patients.
And you're justifying all the things that just don't matter. I just told you a business metric. This is the hard truth. Now, you can face it today or face it in 6 years when your credit score is 500 and you're struggling to pay rent and payroll. You decide. So there's got to be some, there's clarity, there's humility, and then there's common sense. And common sense, and I've gone through all this. Common sense basically means don't be a dreamer, man. Don't be a dreamer. Stick to the metrics. If your business is at 43% payroll, you got a problem. Fix it instead of live with it, suffer, and complain. So when you're at 43% and you're down here with your collections and it's time to renew your practice lease, don't. That business failed. Walk. Now, who walks? Nobody. You know why? Why would I want to do something hard? I'll figure it out. I didn't figure it out my first 10 years in business, but hell, in the next 18 months, I'm going to figure it out. Guess what? It won't happen. Now you sign a 6-year lease on your 10-year option, and now you're in your second year and you're stuck for another 4 years. Some of this stuff is just logic and common sense, which we don't have because emotion, greed, lack of maturity, lack of intelligence, lack of wisdom, lack of training, lack of skills, if I haven't said that already, all play a role in our dental degree. But man, we're doctors, man. We know what we're doing. We're doctors. Who are you to tell me? You know what? I will tell you right now that there are so many doctors that are listening to this and going, man, he is right. He's dead on. Bullseye. And won't change a thing. Right?
Right.
And that's because it's human nature, man. It's human nature. Suffer in silence and smile in front of everybody else. That's what dentistry is. 85% of dentistry is just that. 85%, I posted something about expansion and contraction. And one doctor goes, I knew that 20 years ago. Why don't you say something? I know he's being sarcastic, right? And I said, man, you knew that 20 years ago and you didn't say something 20 years ago? It's the same thing in life. You know what you need to do right now. You're listening to me right now. You know what you need to do and you still won't do it. I don't want to use foul language, man, but dude, right? And so you suffer in silence. You'll go tonight to the party and celebrate because you're a doctor. People will pat you on the back because you're a doctor. You got your jacket and tie on because you're a doctor. And you go home and you suffer because you know that smile and that happy, joyful mindset is Monday, I can't make payroll. Because you're a 43%, man. You're always going to struggle making payroll. So stop the madness. These are the things I've learned in
Let me give you a
25
round
years.
of applause, Dr. Safarian. I know you have a patient in a few minutes, and I've got to go pick up my son from school.
All good.
This is great. I think this is the best of our three that we've had. Um, I think that a lot of seasoned dentists maybe need a reminder of some of the things you said, and a lot of younger, newer dentists, I hope they listen to this a couple times.
My man, thank you
All
for
right.
having me.
You'll see this posted in the group. You'll see it on YouTube.